whole, well, now almost like a dream, but so many years back, you know. My sister, my elder sister, and then me, and then my second brother, my third brother, and then my fourth brother, His Holiness, we were all born in the, cow barn. So in the Tibetan custom, we think you see, you give a birth, then you should go to the, straw house or, straw room or go to the cow barn because you make mass. That's right.
I remember the day in 1933 when His Holiness, the 13th Dalai Lama, passed away. His precious body was embalmed and placed in state facing south in the Potala Palace in Lhasa. One day, we went to pray before his venerable body and were startled to find that the Dalai Lama's head had turned itself and was now facing to the northeast. A year and a half later, the regent of Tibet led us on a journey 10 days south of Lhasa to a sacred lake known for auspicious visions. For days we fasted and prayed and observed the lake. We stared into the water until miraculously a vision appeared of a 3-story temple with a gold roof. To the east stood a small peasant farmhouse with unusual blue eaves. After months of travel and inquiry, we found a house such as had appeared in the regent's vision. The highest Lama of our party, who had been a close friend of the 13th Dalai Lama, was dressed as a beggar. He was
defended by unstoppable
cautious child.
And then these monks wear his beads, 13th Dalai Lama's beads on their neck. And they come to the doorway and said, please help us, give us some food. And my mother carried this little child on the arm, and this child hold this man, clothes, said, do you remember me? And his little hand went to this neck and here, and pull out his prayer beads. This is mine. Why you keep it? This is mine, talk such a thing like that.
Several weeks later, we returned to the house. The Lamas spread out, among other things, a rosary, a walking stick, and a drum, which had belonged to the 13th Dalai Lama. Next to each, they placed a more ornate copy. Without hesitation, the divine child gathered the Dalai Lama's things, his things, and disdained the fancier copies. We turned and stared at each other with tears in our eyes, scarcely able to breathe. The Dalai Lama had been reborn and was looking at us through the eyes of this remarkable child.
Few occasions, in dream, I remember some is my previous lives. But these are mysterious. I'm wondering whether it's worthwhile to discuss. I don't know. Say it's past is past.
For me, I don't consider His Holiness as a brother, in the sense that, when His Holiness is recognized as the Dalai Lama, he is taken from the family and he stays up in the Potala. It's a very different thing from an ordinary brother in an ordinary family.
The first time I saw him was in a big palanquin, a golden palanquin shaded by a peacock umbrella. And then he looked very curiously out of the window at me. He was carried by 36 people and everybody was lying down. Nobody dared even to look up at him. Our friendship began very late. It began actually not long before the Chinese started threatening Tibet that they are going to liberate them, you see, the Tibetans. And of course in Tibet nobody knew of whom and of what they were going to be liberated, because it was only Peter Aufschneider and me staying in Lhasa. He was a lonely little boy. He wanted to have someone to talk to and who knew a little bit from the West. He wanted to hear more of the world, and I could tell him. Well, I think he was like any other boy, but he had no chance to be like any other boy.
When I saw some boys and girls who play, then I very much, you see, want to join. So that indicates some, I think, feeling of isolation. At the same time, I have very good playmates. See, those sweepers, although the age is a big difference, vast differences, but they act like a baby or like a boy. And they play equally. They never accept their defeat. So sometimes they made me cry. I defeated, so sometimes I feel angry and cry. I still feel they are very kind, very helpful.
Did this help you to learn compassion, do you think?
Oh, no, not compassion. I think sense of competition. Lingman Rinpoche, my tutor, and till his last day, he remained my best friend or my best teacher. So, since my childhood, he looked after me. Oh, very kind. But at the beginning, when I was very young, he never smiled to me. He never showed smile. So I'm a little bit afraid. I think now I realize he acts, I think, as a good teacher. A little bit scared to me. Strict. I can understand.
In 1983, Ling Rinpoche died in Dharamsala, India. 2 years later, his reincarnation was found in the Tibetan children's village, just a half a mile away from where he died. Today, the young Ling Rinpoche is 6 years old. He's being trained in the same way that the young Dalai Lama was trained by the previous Ling Rinpoche. Throughout his childhood, the Dalai Lama was schooled in the rigors of Tibetan Buddhism. He had to learn the rituals and disciplines, and his mind was trained to a laser-like clarity. His course of study included logic, Tibetan art and culture, Sanskrit, medicine, cosmology, poetry, music and drama, and philosophy. At the end of nearly 2 decades of education, he took his oral exams for the Geshe degree, equivalent to a doctorate of philosophy. For these exams, he had to debate with the most learned scholars of the day in front of 20,000 monks. His performance was remarkable. It was all the more extraordinary because for 8 years leading up to his exams, he had to divide his time between his strenuous religious training and leading a nation living under occupation. One of his first actions as head of state was to confront his enemies directly. He went to China to meet with Mao and Zhou Enlai. He went to argue for the fate of his country, and he had just turned 19.
So I went there to Peking. During that time, although not a negotiation, but serious discussion with Chairman Mao regarding future Tibet. I very much have to say anxious, but an actual discussion with Chinese leaders, especially Chairman Mao, outwardly, the thing's not difficult. His manner or the way of conduct is so gentle, so friendly. At that time, I believed we developed some kind of, I think, some kind of understanding. That I felt. But then later, it seems my conviction or my observation seems, I think, seems wrong. At last audience of Chairman Mao, he expressed the religion is poison and very bad for country. He pointed, you see, 2 points. One, the great damage for population and the material development. So that moment, I really felt was quite bad that, oh, this person is really the destroyer of Dharma, of religion.
And destroy religion they did. The once grand monasteries of Tibet were the cornerstones of the society. Some of them housed as many as 10,000 monks. They were Tibet's schools and universities. They were its libraries and medical centers. Over 95% of the 6,000 monasteries, temples, and shrines have been destroyed by the communist Chinese. They've been pillaged and are now in ruins. Most of the lamas, monks, nuns, and teachers are among the 1.2 million Tibetans who have lost their lives because of the Chinese invasion. This ancient tradition, which the communist Chinese are trying to eradicate in Tibet, is based on an individual training his or her mind to understand the deepest levels of existence.
My daily practice is preparation for death through meditation. Make separation, the body and consciousness. So, unless you reach the deepest subtle consciousness, you cannot separate this body and mind. So once you reach that deepest stage, then it can separate. And then go deeper, 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 then the deepest. That's clear light. So anyway, sometimes I joke, in 24 hours, I experience 7 times death and rebirth. And then when the actual death happens, then this practice becomes very useful.
Today, Tibetan Buddhism can only be freely practiced outside of Tibet. Here, over 200,000 people have gathered in northern India to receive a sacred teaching from the Dalai Lama. The initiates take vows to gain enlightenment. They do it not for themselves, but in order to help others. The teaching centers on a mandala made completely of sand. It represents an idealized realm where the world is in complete harmony. If grains of sand can become a reflection of the divine, just think what can be done with a human being. By visualizing the mandala with the proper motivation, the initiate can begin the journey to a tranquil understanding that's known as enlightenment.
I always consider happiness or joy is the purpose of life. Since everyone is want happiness. And without the inner tranquility, there's no possibility to achieve genuine, lasting happiness. That's why I call love and compassion is a universal religion. One's own happiness and joy depend on others. So therefore, in order to achieve one's own happiness, you should take care. You should have to serve other people. If you create more happiness on other people, then ultimately you get the benefit.